The air in the Grand Hyatt Seoul was thick with the suffocating weight of old money. Amara sat in the darkened security ops suite, her fingers flying across 3 monitors. To the world, she was just a high-priced digital consultant hired to scrub the messy online trails of Jaxon Kang, the dragon heir of Kang Industries. In reality, she was a ghost trying to earn enough to pay for her brother's heart surgery, a debt Jackson's company had quietly purchased months ago. Jaxon was on the ballroom floor below. Through the security cams, he looked like he was carved from obsidian, sharp jawline, cold eyes, and a suit that cost more than Amara's university tuition. "Scan complete," Amara whispered. "Digital trail is clean. No one will ever know about the Busan accounts." But then a flicker. A subroutine she hadn't written began to pulse in the corner of her screen. It wasn't a system error. It was a live thermal view of the kitchen service elevators. 3 men in tactical gear were moving with the synchronized grace of professional assassins. They weren't looking for jewelry. They were carrying silenced weapons. One man looked directly into the camera. He held up a digital timer. 2 o'clock. Pause for a moment. Have you ever felt that cold pit in your stomach when you realize the person you're working for is far more dangerous than you imagined? If you're rooting for Amara to make it out of this building alive, hit that like button right now and subscribe to see how this conspiracy unfolds. Amara didn't think. She grabbed her laptop and sprinted out of the ops room. She reached the ballroom balcony just as the timer on her screen hit 0. The lights didn't just flicker, they died. The expensive symphony of laughter and crystal shattered into a vacuum of absolute darkness. Amara lunged over the railing, screaming his name into the void. "Jaxon. Table 4. Get down." A muzzle flash strobed from the kitchen doors, lighting up the room in sickening bursts. Suddenly, a hand wrapped around her waist, yanking her over the velvet rope and into the shadows of a marble pillar. She was crushed against a chest that felt like reinforced steel. The scent of sandalwood and cold gunpowder hit her. "I told you to stay in the room, Amara." A voice growled against her ear, deep, lethal, and shockingly calm. It was Jaxon. He wasn't hiding. He was shielding her, his body a literal wall between her and the rain of leads splintering the marble inches away. "How did you?" she gasped. "Did you really think I hired you for your coding skills?" Jaxon whispered, his eyes never leaving the doorway. "I hired you because my father's hitmen have been trying to erase you for 3 years. And I'm the only one who can keep you alive." Do you think Jaxon is really protecting her, or is he just keeping his property safe? Tell us in the comments what you would do if you found out your boss had been secretly watching you for 3 years. We're reading every single one. Before she could scream, he pressed his forehead to hers. "Stay behind me. If we die tonight, we die together." He stepped out into the strobing light, a monster protecting his only weakness. The safe house was a concrete bunker disguised as a luxury penthouse in the heart of Gangnam. Outside, the city of Seoul hummed with life, oblivious to the fact that the heir to the nation's largest conglomerate had just survived a massacre. Inside, the air was freezing. Amara sat on the edge of a velvet sofa, her hands still trembling as she stared at the man she thought she knew. Jaxon was shirtless, his back to her as he cleaned a graze on his shoulder. The sight of him stole her breath, not because of his physique but because of the stories written in his skin. He was covered in scars that didn't belong on a billionaire. "You said they've been trying to erase me for 3 years, Amara's voice cracked. "I've only been in Korea for 6 months. I was a freelance coder in Lagos. I was nobody." Jaxon turned, his dark eyes burning with a mixture of cold fury and something that looked dangerously like obsession. "You were never nobody, Amara. You were the girl who hacked the World Bank at 19 just to clear your neighbor's debt. You were the girl who flagged the illegal mining operations in the Congo that my father's shell companies were funding." He stepped closer, looming over her. "I've been watching you since that day. Not because I was hunting you, but because I had to make sure my father's cleaners didn't find you. Every job you got, every lucky break in your career, every anonymous donation to your brother's hospital bill, that was me." Amara stood up, her chest heaving. "You played God with my life? You let me believe I was succeeding on my own while you were, what? Stalking me. I was keeping you breathing." Jaxon roared, his composure finally breaking. He grabbed her wrists, his grip firm but not painful. "My father, Chairman Kang, doesn't leave loose ends. To him you are a bug in his system. A glitch that needs to be deleted. I bought your brother's debt so I could force you here under my roof, where my security is the only thing between you and a shallow grave. The addictive pivot. Just as Amara begins to feel a sense of safety, her laptop, which she had recovered from the gala, beeps. The hidden feed she found earlier wasn't just for the assassins. It was a countdown. Jaxon, she whispered, looking at the screen. The gala wasn't the target. This is. A red dot began pulsing on a digital map of the penthouse. The glitch she had seen wasn't an assassin in the building. It was a remote-triggered thermite charge located in the server room directly beneath their feet. We have 60 seconds, Amara said, her fingers flying over the keys. And they've locked the biometric exits. Your father didn't just want me dead, Jaxon. He's willing to sacrifice his own son to get rid of the evidence I'm holding. Jaxon didn't hesitate. He didn't look for a key or a code. He grabbed a heavy decorative statue and smashed the floor-to-ceiling glass window. Do you trust me? He asked, the wind whipping his dark hair as the countdown hit 0:10. Amara looked at the laptop, then at the man who had been her secret guardian for 3 years. I hate you, she said, grabbing his hand. But I trust you. The floor buckled. The roar of the explosion swallowed the room. Jaxon wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into the abyss of the Seoul skyline just as the penthouse turned into a pillar of fire. The impact of the fall was broken by the specialized high-tension wires Jaxon had installed for emergencies, but the fire from the explosion above painted the night sky a hellish orange. They landed on a lower maintenance ledge, breathless and covered in soot. We can't stay here, Jaxon rasped, checking his tactical watch. The explosion will trigger the city's high-alert response. My father will have cleaners, dressed as first responders on site in 5 minutes. He pulled Amara into a service stairwell. The sterile fluorescent lighting of the building's gut made Jaxon look even more lethal. He stopped at a heavy steel door, punching in a code that shouldn't have existed. This is a dead zone, he said, turning to her. No cameras, no microphones. Tell me what was on that laptop, Amara. Why did he try to kill me along with you? Amara leaned against the cold wall, her hands finally stilling. It wasn't just the mining, Jaxon. When I was scrubbing your digital trail, I found a shadow ledger. Your father isn't just funding illegal mines. He's using your brother's medical debt, and thousands of others, as collateral for a human trafficking algorithm. Jaxon stiffened. An algorithm? He's using cybersecurity experts to predict which families are the most desperate, then buying their debt to force their children into his private security or, worse. I wasn't just a glitch, Jaxon. I was the one who accidentally mapped the entire network of his collateral. If that data gets out, the Kang Empire doesn't just fall, it burns to the ground. The silence that followed was heavy. Jaxon reached out, his thumb brushing a smudge of soot from her cheek. His touch was no longer just protective. It was desperate. 6 years ago, Jaxon whispered, his voice cracking, I had a brother. He found out about the ledger. My father didn't send him to Europe for studies, Amara. He disappeared him. I've spent every second since then becoming the monster my father wanted me to be, just so I could get close enough to destroy it from the inside. He stepped into her space, his forehead resting against hers. I didn't just bring you here to save you. I brought you here because you're the only one smart enough to help me finish what my brother started. But if we do this, there's no going back. You won't just be a consultant. You'll be the woman who took down a god. Amara looked into his eyes, the eyes of a man who had lived in the dark for too long. I've been fighting to survive since the day I was born, Jaxon. I don't want to just survive anymore. I want to win. Jackson's hand moved to the back of her neck, his grip possessive and fierce. Then we give him a war. The moment was shattered by the sound of boots echoing in the stairwell above. Jaxon pulled a second weapon from a hidden wall compartment, a sleek, suppressed submachine gun. He handed Amara a localized jamming device. He thinks he's playing chess, Jaxon said, his face hardening into the mask of the dragon Heir. He doesn't realize we're playing a different game entirely. The digital battlefield was set. Instead of fleeing Seoul, Jaxon and Amara retreated to the one place Chairman Kang would never look, the Dead Files archive in the sub-basement of the Kang Industries headquarters. If we're going to kill a god, Amara said, her eyes reflected in the glow of a decrypted server, we don't use bullets. We use the truth. Amara had spent the last 4 hours weaving a digital Trojan. She didn't just have the shadow ledger, she had live access to the chairman's private banking portal. Beside her, Jaxon was on a secure satellite phone, his voice a low, lethal vibration as he called in favors from the monsters he had helped over the years. Men who owed him their lives, not his father. "The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, Jaxon said, hanging up. He looked at Amara, noticing the way her fingers trembled slightly against the keys. He stepped behind her, placing his large, warm hands over hers. "Amara, look at me." She turned. The cold, arrogant air was gone. In his place was a man who looked at her with a terrifying, silent obsession. "After today you can go anywhere. I'll clear your brother's debt, give you $10 million and a new identity. You'll be free of me." Amara felt a sharp pang in her chest, not of relief but of something far more dangerous. "Is that what you want? For me to be free of you?" Jaxon's grip tightened. "I want to keep you in a cage of gold where no one can ever touch you again. I want to spend every breath making up for the 3 years I watched you from the shadows. But I'm a Kang. I'm poison. And you deserve the sun." Amara stood, closing the distance between them until her breath hitched against his lips. "I've spent my life being hunted by the sun. I think I prefer the shadow of the dragon." Before he could respond, the elevator chimed. It was time. They entered the 80th floor boardroom just as Chairman Kang was raising a glass of 50-year-old scotch to celebrate his survival and the tragic loss of his son. The room went silent. The directors, the elite of Korea's 1%, stared at the soot-stained, blood-streaked pair like they were ghosts. "Jaxon," the chairman whispered, his face turning a sickly gray. You're supposed to be dead." Jaxon finished, walking to the head of the table. He didn't sit, he stood over his father, the physical embodiment of a coup. "I've always been better at surviving than you were at killing, father." Amara didn't wait. She slammed her laptop onto the mahogany table and synced it to the 100-inch presentation screen. "Gentlemen," Amara's voice rang out, steady and commanding. "You aren't here for a merger. You're here for a liquidation." The screen flickered to life. It wasn't spreadsheets. It was a live feed of the chairman's secret holding cells, followed by a scrolling list of every bribe, every collateral human debt, and every hit contract signed by Kang Industries in the last decade. "What is this?" one board member gasped. "This is the end," Jaxon said. He leaned down, his face inches from his father's. "I just sent this data to the Blue House, the Interpol and every major news outlet in Lagos and Seoul. In 5 minutes the stock will hit zero. In 10 minutes the police will be here." The chairman lunged for the laptop, but Jaxon caught his wrist in a grip that made bone creak. "You ruined my brother," Jaxon hissed. "You tried to kill the only thing I've ever loved. Now I'm going to watch you become nothing." The police sirens were a distant melody against the roar of the collapsing Kang stock. Outside the boardroom the empire was in chaos, but inside the air was still. Jaxon didn't move until his father was led away in handcuffs, the old man's eyes fixed on the floor in a posture of total defeat. Jaxon turned to Amara. He looked at her, not as his employee, not as the girl he had watched from afar, but as the woman who had just dismantled the world's most dangerous conglomerate with a few lines of code. "It's done," he whispered. "Not yet," Amara said. She walked back to the laptop. "The shadow ledger is gone, but the collateral remains. Thousands of families, Jaxon. Thousands of people like my brother." "I know." Jaxon stepped behind her, his hands resting on her shoulders. "I've already redirected the Kang family's private trust. Every debt associated with that ledger has been settled. Every person is free. Your brother's surgery? Paid in full. His recovery? Guaranteed." Amara felt a weight lift off her soul that she had carried since she was a child in Lagos. She turned in his arms, her eyes searching his. "And you? What happens to the dragon heir now that the dragon is dead?" Jackson's expression softened into something vulnerable. "The board will try to keep me as CEO to stabilize the company. They'll offer me everything. Power, money, a seat at the head of the table." He paused, his thumb tracing the line of her jaw. "But I realized something tonight, Amara. I don't want to be a king. I want to be yours." "You're walking away?" she asked, breathless. "I'm walking toward you," Jaxon replied. "I bought a small cybersecurity firm in Singapore. No conglomerates. No shadow ledgers. Just us. We build something real, Amara. Something that protects people instead of owning them. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, obsidian black card. This is the key to a private jet waiting at Gimpo. It leaves in 1 hour. If you're on it, you're not my consultant. You're my partner. My equal. Amara looked at the card, then at the man who had traded an empire for her safety. She thought about the 3 years he had spent in the shadows, the scars on his back, and the way he had shielded her from the bullets at the gala. One condition, Amara said, a playful spark returning to her eyes. Anything. I get to be the lead architect. You're just the muscle. Jaxon laughed, a sound that was rare, deep, and full of life. He pulled her into a kiss that tasted of victory and new beginnings. Deal. 3 months later. The sun was setting over the Marina Bay Sands in Singapore. Amara sat on a balcony, her laptop open, finishing a security patch for a global NGO. A pair of strong arms wrapped around her waist, and the scent of sandalwood filled her senses. The doctor called, Jaxon whispered against her neck. Your brother is walking again. He'll be here for the wedding next month. Amara leaned back into his chest, closing her eyes. The girl who was once a glitch in a billionaire system had become the architect of her own destiny. Jaxon, she murmured. Yes. I'm glad you were obsessed with me. Jaxon gripped her tighter, his voice dropping to that lethal, protective register she loved. I still am, Amara. And I'm never letting go.